Now it's my pleasure to introduce a longtime friend, member of the Greater Columbia Community Relations Council, and also the Vice Chairman of the South Carolina Department of Transportation, who has a very nice duty to perform in introducing our speaker. Welcome, Commissioner Harrison Reardon. Good morning, Mr. Reardon.
It is my pleasure to be here today, and I'm going to do two things. I'm going to clarify a misnomer, and I'm going to introduce the speaker. How about that? Clarifying the misnomer, I'm not the guy who issues your license plates anymore. Many people think South Carolina DOT, which is South Carolina Department of Transportation, and South Carolina DMV are the same. They aren't anymore. In 2007, they were separated. And I just happen to be the commissioner for the DOT, and I'm going to introduce to you a tremendous leader of the South Carolina DMV. It was in 2007 that these two agencies were separated. And so I still get some of the compliments from it. I accept them too from DMV. But anyway, Colonel Kevin Suedo was named or selected by the governor to become the executive director of DMV. And as you know, the Senate has to concur with that kind of appointment. Very shortly, in February, the Senate concurred and he became state director of DMV. Before that, however, and you'll hear me call him Colonel straight through, because these military guys worked so hard, so diligently, and so honorably to get to the point of Colonel. They wanted to go to the grave with it. So I shall not interfere with that. But anyway, the Colonel was Deputy Commanding Officer for the training center at Fort Jackson. And as you know, Fort Jackson is the largest and most celebrated training center in all of the division of the Army. And he did a stellar job while there. However, he retired from the Army after 32 years of honorable service. I am tempted, except the timing, to read to you a litany of awards, citations that he received while he was in military duty during these 32 years. But trust me, he acquired them. I will not take the time up to read all of those. He served in many, many leadership positions while in service. He holds a BS degree in business from the University of North Carolina, and we won't hold that against him. He also holds an MBA in administration from Shippensburg, that's in the University of Pennsylvania. He is married, his wife's name is Beth, and they have two children, Cameron and Ryan. And I'm telling you, we are pleased to have him here today because he is serving in a very important capacity in our community. So I give you now the Colonel.
It is a great day in South Carolina. We have an opportunity to really celebrate today as we look at today's events. But before we jump into that, I want to do something that, go take me back to my Army roots. Guys, I have been there where you have been very long time. I'm gonna exercise my old Colonel duties. Shake it out. Move around right now. Real quickly. Okay. Bend it on up. Get it on up. Because you know I got to lock you back on up, so get it out of your system. All right. I want to start off by thanking Ed and Geraldine for doing everything you guys have done to make today possible. They came to my office a long time ago, and a lot of people come to the director's office with pie-in-the-sky ideas. and very few of them can go ahead and back up what they laid on the table. And I will tell you, I thought that their ideas and their ambitions were beyond reality. Today, you proved me and a lot of others wrong, and it is great to be wrong. I also want to go ahead and suggest that it's a tough road to follow. I mean, I'm preceded almost immediately by, one of the state's first 3 black legislators. Where's Representative Hollimon? There he is. An individual that was a member of the old guard and actually carried President Kennedy's casket when he was buried. I mean, we've got some amazing people in this state, and we walk by them each and every day, and we don't thoroughly appreciate just how great this state is, and more importantly, how great the people are that serve this state. And as I look around at the group of people that we've had here already, I mean, political leaders. How do you follow a bunch of political leaders who talk for a living? I mean, you've had over 23 people on up here. What am I supposed to say that ain't been said yet? And then all of a sudden you've got the educational leaders. And the educational leaders, they do their research. I don't know about you, but Shweta wasn't a straight A student. And they've done their homework. They've pulled the quotes that I wanted to pull out as they've talked up here. So you've made my job more difficult. And then you got Dr. Swinton over here. I've had one job interview in my life, and the toughest question I've been asked in my life was the very first job interview question he gave me. And so I'll let that question be secret for the time being, but I appreciate your tolerance and forbearance, sir. How do you follow a bunch of great religious leaders? I mean, they're doing it from the pulpit, and if you're talking from an inspired heart, you just can't compete. So I'm trying to lay out the competition for you right now, because this ain't an easy job. And so I'd ask you to tolerate some of the repetition that goes into this thing. But we're here today, like I said, to go ahead and recognize an amazing woman. She has been a leader for the longest time. She was a leader of the civil rights movement, and more importantly, a role model. And too often in society, we choose the wrong role models. If we had more role models like Mary Bethune-Cookman, this world would continue to excel at a pace unprecedented, because she found no opportunity to compromise. She found no opportunity to go ahead and settle for anything that wasn't the best. And so it is an opportunity right now to recognize what she's done. We're proud of the bipartisan support that she was able to bring together through Ed and Geraldine. I mean, the fact of the matter is, when you take a look at what it took to get this far, they had to go ahead and get the people in the House and the Senate to agree. They had to get Republicans and Democrats and Tea Party all around the same table and make it work. And they overcame every obstacle to make this very special plate a reality. And that's why it's such an honor to go ahead and to be a part of this ceremony. Many of those don't fully appreciate the struggle, and they saw this plate as the culmination of a lot of hard work. But Ed and Geraldine know that it's not the culmination of anything. It is really the beginning of a dream, because it is this plate that will lead to the real long-term memorialization of Dr. Mary Bethune-Cookman. What money this brings will do great things for the community, for parks and tourism, for the history of South Carolina. Yes, it's a beautiful symbolic plate, and it recognizes that role model that I talked about here a minute ago. And she crossed boundaries that most people wouldn't even consider thinking about. A selfless person, initially focused on an education in hopes of becoming a missionary in Africa. And I think a lot of people mention that. What most haven't mentioned is when she got turned down because they didn't, quote unquote, need her to be a missionary in Africa. It may have been one of the greatest things that's happened to this state in terms of what she was able to accomplish. Yes, I know that the people in Africa would have been greatly benefited the same way as we are today, but this state has benefited in a way that we cannot imagine. I don't know how you do as much as she does, you know, and got to support the education. When you are the 15th in 17 children, we don't have families that large any day. And she's at the bottom of the pecking order, and she's fighting for everything, which might describe her tenacity. But when she decided to focus on something else, she focused on education. And it was that education that became her gateway to success. She focused in her education on the Christian beliefs of, and I'll use a common term, eliminating the urban legends. There were individuals at the time that were talking and focusing on the African American population in terms of crime and shame. And she knew and pressed for a different world. She focused on a Christian moral education. When she started, she had a quote, and I'll just go ahead and read the quote. It says, "I considered cash money as the smallest part of my resources. I had faith in a living God, faith in myself, and a desire to serve." Now, why do I bring that up? In today's business world, we call that a mission statement. A mission statement is something that derives everything else that is going to come from that vision statement. I would suggest to you that has become your mission statement with everything that you've got on the horizon for the Mary McLeod Bethune Memorial. And there's a lot of work in front of you. But it is a very simple, a very eloquent vision statement that I think will drive where we're going. Beyond becoming the only female black president of one of the greatest universities in this country, we've already talked about her being the head of the National Association of Colored Women, who focused on voter registration, the National Youth Administration, the first African-American female federal agency chief in this country. And her focus was to help school-based programs. And then, as was mentioned earlier, she was on President Roosevelt's Federal Council on Negro Affairs, otherwise known as the Black Cabinet. Most of these titles make you think that she focused on Black America. She didn't. And I'm glad that some of the educators didn't steal all the great quotes out there, but she dedicated herself to all races. She said, look at not only the Negro child, but children of all races should know of the achievements, the accomplishments, and the deeds of the Negro. World peace and brotherhood are based on a common understanding of the contributions and cultures of all races and all creeds. Return now to that vision statement. Return now to the fierce power of that young lady as she was overcoming obstacles at the national level to take care of her community. And recognize that today's efforts to recognize her with a license plate that will produce revenue to continue her vision is going to be unveiled here in a few short minutes. And from that, the only thing that I can use to describe how important the event is, and use her own words, come from her last will and testimony, which is on the words of a statue honoring her in a park in Washington, D.C. And straight from that statue, from her last will and testimony, I leave you love. I leave you hope. I leave you the challenge of developing confidence in each other. I leave you the thirst for education. I leave you a respect for the use of power. I leave you faith